Hey, welcome to day 4 of my demolishing a good girl journey. So let's see. Today was all about, the good girl in hip hop, a look back at the 90s. So I was born in 78. I'm 46 years old. And so in the late 90s, I was a teenager, early 2000s in my 20s, right? So turned 20 in 98, basically. So late teens, early 20s, around this time, super into hip hop from the East Coast, from Virginia, so heavy New York influence, New York hip hop. But also down south hip hop, right? Because being in Virginia, people forget that it is actually below the Mason-Dixon line, and so it is technically the South, right? Even though we kind of get left out of the South conversations a lot of times. The area that I'm from, Missy Elliott, Timberland, Pharrell, all of those people from the same area I'm from. So definitely very connected to hip hop. And so when looking at uh this conversation that we've been having around this whole like good girl type of energy, there was also very much the um archetype of the bad bee, right? I don't know if I can really cuss on YouTube, so to be on the safe side, because I don't want my post to get taken down. I'll just say bad bee, but you know what I'm talking about, right? So there was in hip hop, there was very much both, right? Because I'm from the era of Foxy Brown, Lil Kim, you know, Trina, very much, that Babby energy, very take charge, I'm going for mine type of thing. But then on the other side of that, just like I shared in my post, you definitely still had, especially in R&B, you definitely still had those women that kind of like told the line of respectability politics and didn't rock the boat too much, right? When you looked at the imagery of videos at that time, right? And hip hop videos that was out around that time, it was this portrayal of the good girl, the one that don't really talk too much, that's kind of just chilling, was the one that got wiped up, that the one that got to be in the video with the champagne glass, right? Like just chilling and kind of being in what they call now like that soft energy. Um, and then the bad bee was like, she was the one that was just kind of out here kicking butt and taking names, right? So at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but now kind of looking back, I definitely see the duality that was there, which, I'm actually a fan of duality because I do believe there is a yes and type of energy that can be occupied and that we can walk within. But I also have to acknowledge how confusing that particular programming was, right? In regards to what we saw inside of hip hop. And I mean, looking back at it now, very much grape culture happening, right? Inside of hip hop, very much misogyny, misogynoir, all of those things also happening inside of that culture at that time. And so being a product of that particular timing as a woman, different things stick with you. And you realize um, essentially some rules that you ended up kind of abiding by without realizing it, right? So things like a lady doesn't raise her voice, right? She's quiet, you know, you're kind of seen and not heard, but then you have that energy of um, you know, that stronger, more liberated woman also coming out that's like, you ain't gonna keep me quiet, right? Like, I'm gonna say what I need to say. Women like Queen Latifah coming out with like UNITY, right? Who you calling to be, right? Like that type of thing. So you have on one side you have this very much like be pleasant, be non-confrontational. Then on the other side, you have this part that's like sometimes aggressiveness is necessary, right? And you got to speak up for yourself and you can't let people silence you, right? You have kind of like the nice girl finishes last type of thing, you know, and but at the same time, it's like, oh, if you be good enough, then you get chose, right? So like there's a lot of conflicting information that was happening. And one of the things that I often talk about is like, for me, my parents, uh, very loving parents, very you could do anything, you could be anything, supportive, type of parents, right? Like that's the household I came from. And so I wasn't getting none of that at home, like as far as that double-sidedness. It was very much your voice matters, you're beautiful, you could do all the things, very encouraging, very enlightening, right? But what I say oftentimes is sometimes the voices at home are not quite as loud as the voices out in the world, right? So then you dealing with high school. This is college time, first um, induction into the true workforce, right? Um, and and then you have hip hop and movies and all these other different things, right? That are like, let me give you all these different messages, right? And then of course you have relationships and friendships and all the different things that are really kind of solidifying some of these things. And then for me personally, certain aspects of who I was, um, and who I am naturally, divinely designed to be, the way in which I care, the way in which I rock for people that I consider close to me, and different things like that, being taken for granted, um, not being received well, being told that, my straightforwardness was mean or, different things. It was like what I'm recognizing is that I definitely shut down parts of that for myself. And from a business standpoint now, 20 something years later, right? 30, almost 30 years later, I've realized how it affected the way in which I showed up in the marketplace, right? That even though I am boisterous and I'm very much, do things like this, do live streams, go live, write all the things, create content that provokes thought, it's still not to the fullness of what I'm capable of and what is wanting to come through, right? And so the uh tone policing that I do to myself, right? Which is directly correlates to the tone policing we already receive in in all things as Black women, right? Why you say it like that? It's why your tone like that. Why you so loud? Why you so quiet? Like, whichever the case may be, because whatever you are, just always someone has an issue with it, right? And so, just kind of having these revelations. I ain't gonna front like it is. I'm like, dang, it's only day 4, right? It definitely has me like, okay, I have 20 something more days of this, but it is freeing. It is liberating. This is what liberation looks like. This is what, I get to um create my own narrative now, right? And I get to not only demand what I want and say that, the crumbs are not enough. Um, and I get to declare and decree who I am on today. And so that is part of the biggest takeaway in regards of like really kind of looking at all this, essentially what was coming out of hip hop in the 90s is like really a lot of contradictory messaging, right? And then being young, and I'm sure it's not everybody's story, but I can only speak for myself. And, if you are somebody that's watching this and relates, definitely please comment and let me know I'm not by myself. But there was a lot of contradictory content, and, you know, most people in their 20s, we're very fearless, right? Because you definitely are still in that stage of like, I have my whole life in front of me, nobody can touch me, right? And you have that fearless energy, and just kind of seeing how over the years that got chipped away at, right? And that got um minimized and taken down and, brought down to size essentially. Um and you know and having the self-awareness now and the realization of it also allows me to say this part of that movement, of the hip hop movement, still serves me to this day. This part not so much, and I get to let that go. Um so our affirmation for today: I define myself. No song, no stereotype, no era can tell me who I am. So thanks for joining my TED Talk. I'll see y'all sometime tomorrow. Now, I will say this, tomorrow is my best friend's birthday. And so I will share tomorrow, but it probably will be late like this. So, you know, just putting it out there. But because I will be celebrating my best friend of almost 30 years. So yeah, I define myself. No song, no stereotype, no era can tell me who I am. And that's just bars, right? All right, till tomorrow. Love y'all.